Hello, everybody. Welcome to Two Way Tonight. I'm Mark Halperin. It's 5 Eastern Time. We're going to spend the bulk of the hour talking about Iran. Um, Very complicated day in my reporting and in what's appearing in the public eye. Um, and um, I would say, you never want to predict Donald Trump. Never want to predict Donald Trump. Donald Trump, I like to say, is as consistent, is so inconsistent. He makes Kim Un-jung look like Rob Portman. That's not a joke for all of you, but only for some of you. So what I'm about to tell you might not be true, even though it's based on reporting. Uh, this war is not ending soon. It's not ending today. It's not ending very soon, despite the president saying today, amongst other things, that there were no more targets left to hit in Iran. Well, there are. Uh, so I think we're talking weeks now, which means it'll go past the president's planned summit with Xi. And there's 100 things I want to show you. We only have time for some of them, but I want to show you two things first. And these two things are, I believe, as good at things as I could show you to demonstrate both the complexities of what the president and the Israelis have unleashed and the reason why this is going to go on for a little bit. First, this from the New York Times. It's in a paragraph about a story about the impact that the conflict, less than a couple of weeks old, has already had on the world, and it's very well done. This paragraph it subsumes not everything, but a lot of the things. Do you need the number from me, or you can just put it up?
It's 4C. We're ready.
4C. Put that up. This is from a New York Times. New York Times has written a lot of stories in the last day that do a good job of putting in perspective where these are. I'll read it to you. Mr. Trump's war, now nearly 2 weeks old, is already reshaping travel patterns, energy dependencies, living costs, trade routes, and strategic partnerships. Countries typically shielded from regional conflict, like Cyprus and the UAE, have faced retaliatory Iranian fire. The fallout could disrupt midterm elections in the United States, tilt the war calculus in Ukraine, and force China into a major economic pivot. That's well done, although you could probably double the length of that paragraph. Now I want to show you something Newt Gingrich said on Fox Business. Put Newt Gingrich on Fox Business with Larry Kudlow, and you're creating a petri dish of something to get the White House's attention, the president's attention. He respects Speaker Gingrich. He respects Larry Kudlow. And what Newt Gingrich is saying here is something that our two guests tonight would, I'm sure, agree with. It's very plainly true, but coming out of Newt Gingrich's mouth, sitting with Larry Kudlow, really captured the attention of a lot of people in this administration. Please roll Speaker Gingrich on Fox News.
We have confidence that American folks, particularly the hard-working folks in the middle class, will they back Mr. Trump?
Well, I think they'll back him for a little while, but they're not going to back him forever. Look, there are three huge challenges that this administration has tackled. The first is that, and they should have frankly moved on this on day one, they have to keep the Strait of Hormuz open.
Yes.
I don't care what it costs. If they can't keep it open, this war will in fact be an American defeat before very long, because the entire world, including the American people, will react to the price of oil if the strait stays closed very long. So I lived through this with Reagan, as you did, in the late 80s.
That's the point. Speaker Gingrich says the war will be lost politically and substantively, militarily, if they don't get the strait open. And the strait is closed. The strait is currently closed. So a conflict that has already had worldwide implications. Now, the president could walk away. Since Vietnam, American presidents have faced this question of the credibility of the United States. When Barack Obama drew the red line and then didn't live up to it, that was considered a huge credibility crisis. When Joe Biden had to deal with American loss of life on the withdrawal from Afghanistan, that was considered a crisis of credibility. Saw that when the barracks was blown up, the Marine barracks was blown up. Since Vietnam, there's been this notion: an American president cannot show weakness on the national stage when it involves national security. I don't think Donald Trump cares about that. I really don't, because he always thinks he can talk his way out of things, and he often can. But right now, it does not seem possible, given the goals of this operation, that the Americans and their allies can just walk away and say, okay, the war's over, but Iran has proven that they can control the Strait of Hormuz whenever they feel like it. Okay. Now, meeting at the White House today to come up with an idea about how to deal with all of this. The two very heavily related issues: price of gas in the United States and energy around the world, and Iran's capacity, even with all the military success that Israel and the United States have had, to basically shut down the strait. And they're related, but again, the shutting down of the strait is now about the credibility of the United States, the capacity of the United States to not let the Iranians call the shots. Okay, so at the meeting today that the president led, they talked about how to deal with this, and I can just tell you a few things about it. They agree with Newt Gingrich now. This has to be dealt with. They have to win this fight, and that's going to take a bit. It's not going to happen this week. They also have to figure out how to get ships through, and they need to understand from the private ships and the people who will make the decision. Yeah, send that ship through. What do they need? And they need more security, and they need insurance. The insurance is relatively easy, but they need more security. So it's going to be a bit before there's more security, but it can't be too long, because until that's opened up and until the markets and the operators, right, related, the people who make the decisions to send the ships through, yes, the crew will go, the captain will take it through, and the world markets that react to all these developments, until they're comfortable that the Trump administration has belatedly dealt with this, I believe the war will continue in all likelihood. Again, Donald Trump's unpredictable. And I believe the United States' focus will be very much on this. They're not to exclusion of everything else, but very much on this. Okay? And it's not easy. It's not easy. How is Iran doing this? I think the United States has some understanding of how Iran's shutting down the strait, but they don't totally understand it, and they don't know how long it's going to take to fix it. Okay? There were smaller steps taken today, the release of the oil reserves by European and other American allies. The United States has to decide if they want to be the only ones to open up the strait, or whether they want to work with other countries on that. That's an interesting question. China should want it opened back up, even though they're getting some oil from Iran. Maybe now the Xi summit turns into a discussion about a cooperative effort to reopen the strait. Should Saudi Arabia be involved? Should Europe be involved? Should Israel be involved? These are symbolic and tactical questions that are going to need to be addressed. The president spoke a lot today. He spoke at an event in Ohio. He spoke at an event in Kentucky. He spoke at a departure from the White House before getting on Marine One. He had a lot to say about all of this, and it's a lot of concern in the country about a potential terror attack. ABC News had a report that freaked people out. Now CBS News is knocking it down a little bit. We'll talk about that with our guest, but that's an important thing that happened today. I'm just going through a bunch of stuff here. All right. We're going to run through a bunch of stuff, a lot of sound from the president and from others. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the impressions or ways the people in the media talk about the president that I think just aren't right, even though I keep trying to correct the record for my colleagues. Let's bring in our guests, and I want to hear from them on this issue of the strait. And then before too long, we'll get to your questions and comments. So if you're here on the platform, want to be in on the conversation, please raise your hand. If you're watching on X or YouTube, I encourage you to put smack in the chat. I'm going for reverse psychology. Put as much smack in there as you can. I make $50 every time there's a piece of smack in the chat. I'm going to send my kid to college on the strength of the horrible things that have no real connection to peace, love, and understanding that you all insist on typing in the chat. Thank you for doing that. Please, all smack. Don't put anything positive, constructive. Kevin Sheridan is here, longtime Republican strategist, a man who understands what's what. Kevin, welcome and thank you for coming back. Loved having you on last time. I'm grateful to you for being here. While I bring our other guest in, talk about the communications, the geopolitics, the military. How do you see this challenge now for the United States? Not just the military challenge, but overall of trying to be able to get ships through the Strait of Hormuz.
Well, both the communications from the White House in the first 2 weeks and the media coverage of it has a totally confusing picture right now, depending on who you're reading. If you listen to interventionists, they think this war is going fantastic. If you read the New York Times and some of the mainstream coverage, they're solely focused on things we've done wrong or things that we're not getting right. So I'm interested to hear what kind of reporting that you have. The clearly obvious thing that is right in front of all of our faces is the Strait of Hormuz. If we can't get that open, as you said, that's going to linger. That is going to create a position where he's going to either have to fish or cut bait and pull out like Reagan did when he realized that Lebanon was not worth it. I don't see it yet. And if they're just doing this with drones, I guess that would be a very tough thing to get to, but they've hit a lot of targets and they're not getting the base attacks are not still happening as from what I've seen. But those ships are totally vulnerable. So if we can't cut that out, he's in a terrible spot.
Yeah. Matt Bennett's here. He's a Democrat, but he's honest about life. And that's part of why he succeeded for such a long time in Washington. It's just, he's critical of his party when he thinks they deserve criticism, but he's no fan of the president's. And Matt, this failure to anticipate the need to do what was necessary to secure the strait, I compare it to two other things that the Trump administration has done. A failure to recognize that if you treat Democrats like crap, you're unlikely to get 60 votes for anything, and no plan to have a legislative agenda except by reconciliation. And a failure to anticipate that if you go into negotiations with the Chinese and they can say, well, no rare earth minerals for you, that doesn't seem like a very good posture too. This failure to have a plan going in for securing the strait has caused some people I know who were supportive of this and think dealing with Iran is really important and think the president was brave and courageous to do it. It really has undermined some of the people I talked to today. I'm wondering, is there a way for anyone to explain this as anything but a failure to anticipate really the most anticipatable thing?
No. I mean, there's no way to explain it otherwise. I think what happened is they did the attacks last spring and Iran responded in a very limited way that they had kind of worked out in advance. They tossed a couple of missiles at our troops over there and everybody settled down after that. The president said that their nuclear program had been totally obliterated. I don't know what happened to that assessment, but that apparently is no longer operative. But in any event, I think that's what they thought would happen. I don't know why they thought that would happen after they killed the supreme leader of Iran, along with a whole bunch of the other leaders. Like, they're not going to respond in a limited way when you decapitate their government. And I think it's important to remember, this is a country of 90 million people. It is the 5th largest military in the world, and the Straits of Hormuz are 24 miles wide, and the navigable area is a lot less than that. And as you noted, there's drones. And if you hit a tanker full of gas, which is essentially a floating bomb with a cheap drone, you can do a lot of damage. So I don't understand how they could not have seen this coming. And it is obvious to Iran and to the rest of the world now that this is an incredible point of leverage that they are making pretty good use of.
Yeah. I don't read the chat. I do glance at it on occasion. And I see someone asked the question, why don't we just escort ships through? The answer is it's not considered a safe mission at this point. The Iranians have just too much capacity to make our ships a sitting duck. And I think that'll be the case no matter what. In other words, I don't think the intention is to come up with a way to get American grave boats to escort through here. It's going to be to make the conditions safe by removing the Iranian threat from sea, the Iranian threat from air, the Iranian threat from ground, because the ships have to pass pretty close to the Iranian coast to get through the strait, and they've got capacity on the ground there as well. All right, let me do a quick word, some sponsors, and then to your questions before too long. But there's some other things we want to get to with our guests, including the Pentagon's initial assessment was that indeed, through an accident, the United States destroyed that elementary school and the extraordinary loss of life of school children. We'll talk about that, and then some of the things the president said today about the war. Stay tuned for that. Let me get sponsors in. First sponsor of the evening, Cozy Earth, CozyEarth.com, 20% off everything on the website by using the promo code TWOWAY. Comfort from Cozy Earth products comes in lots of shapes and sizes. The Bubble Cuddle blanket, probably better for winter, and as it gets warmer, you'll want their sheets, which are sheets that will keep you extremely cool in the summer, the bath towels, and the socks, the extraordinary socks, which come not in one style, not in two styles, but in 4 different styles, each pair crafted to make you feel comfortable. The calf, quarter, ankle, and no-show socks. Cozy Earth Essential Socks are soft, breathable, and thoughtfully cushioned to support you from your first step to your last. Everything on the site now, 20% off. Go to CozyEarth.com. Use the promo code TWOWAY for 20% off. Discover how care in every detail transforms simple routines into moments of true comfort and ease. And just buy one product from Cozy Earth and you'll understand why people are so crazy for everything they make. All right, one more. Put on your Cozy Earth socks and go outside and get the mail. Maybe there's a catalog there, maybe some junk mail, maybe something that says you're part of a class action suit. I get a lot of those, usually don't pan out. And maybe there's a box that's 7 feet long that has a tree in it. Well, there can be. If you go to our sponsor, fastgrowingtrees.com, and use the promo code TWOWAY, 20% off. Fastgrowingtrees.com is an incredible website. Just go look at the website. It'll probably intrigue you. All sorts of trees and plants. And you tell them, it's like an online nursery. Tell them what kind of thing you want, what kind of tree you want, a particular type of tree, or inside, outside. And the thing shows up in the mail. Someone the other day ordered like a half dozen trees. So I'm not sure how that comes packaged, hopefully separate boxes. You just open up the box and you can either put the tree inside or the plant inside or put it outside. They'll tell you how to care for it. And it's a great way as spring approaches here to green up your life. Go to fastgrowingtrees.com, promo code TWOWAY. It's like having a local nursery right online. And all their plants and trees come with the Alive and Thrive guarantee. Promises your plant rely happy and healthy. Mine was practically growing out of the box because Fast Growing Trees is truth in advertising. They grow fast. Just go online, order, click away, and the plant or tree will be delivered to your house. Right now, go to fastgrowingtrees.com, 20% off at checkout using the promo code TWOWAY. All right, gentlemen, a lot made of the president's speaking about the war. Kevin, as a communications professional, if the president said to you, Kevin, in general, should I tweak how I talk about the war? What would you tell him?
Well, it depends on what day you asked me, because he said a lot of different things, but he's kind of given it multiple reasons for why we went in when we did. He's given some very glowing assessments that everything is going great and way ahead of schedule. But look, the messaging is, as a messaging guy, there's almost nothing you can message your way out of here, because it's going to come down to the results on the ground and whether or not oil can flow through the strait, whether or not we actually are, leading towards a better Iran where, the RGC may be contained and somebody might flip or something good can happen on the ground. That's really the only thing. Trump's going to be Trump. There's no way to change. You could ask any of his former communications guys. You can't really fix his communications in any way or change it. You can influence him on the margins, but he's going to be who he's always been, and he's been successful at it. So I don't think I could tell him much.
Matt, if the president called you and asked for help and said, Matt, I want to really make the American people understand this, support this, I want to get you on board. There are a lot of people who are Democrats who have long wanted the U.S. and Israel to try to take the capacity of Iran to do damage away. What advice would you give the president about how to do this better for the mission?
Well, first, just to stipulate that I would not offer help to this president. I am, as you noted, really not a fan. But I agree with Kevin. I don't think there's any messaging this. This is a thing everyone can see and everyone can understand. This isn't some complex military problem. It's not as complex, nearly as complex as the Iraq War was, with the questions around counterinsurgency and whether that was working and whether there should be surges in Afghanistan and Iraq. All of that was enormously complicated. This is simple. Can oil tankers come through the Straits of Hormuz or not? And if not, what does that do to our economy? And I just think that's a kind of binary choice that we've got. And so there's no way to message it. I would say also, to Kevin's point, that these guys are all over the place on why we are doing this. I mean, I could probably name like 7 different reasons that they've articulated. And I can tell you that Americans don't have the faintest idea. Why did we do this? I mean, we're replacing a terrible guy that was running the country with his terrible son. We were told that the nuclear weapons were totally obliterated not even a year ago, and I guess they're obliterated again. They still have weapons that they can use against ships in the Gulf. What is the point of all this?
Yeah. All right, let's talk about, well, I want to talk about the elementary school, just because it's such a signal moment in this young conflict. Here's the New York Times headline, 4B, U.S. review finds U.S. responsible for hitting Iran school. Go ahead and put that up. U.S. at fault in strike on school in Iran. Preliminary inquiry says outdated targeting data may have resulted in a mistaken missile strike, according to the ongoing military investigation, which undercuts President Trump's assertion that Iran could be to blame. Here's the president today when asked about that. Number 11, please, as he's getting on Marine One at the White House.
Shows a new report says that the military investigation has found that the United States struck the school in Iran. As Commander-in-Chief, you take responsibility for that.
That is what?
As Commander-in-Chief, do you...
For what?
For the strike on the school in Iran. A new report says the military investigation has found it was the United States that struck the school.
I don't know about it. Are you talking to how do you respond to that?
Matt, obviously, there might be a president whose attitude was, make sure I know every fact about this, because we need to make sure we're responsible for it. And he seems like his attitude is, I want to know a little about it as possible. Again, I know in general what your view of the president is, but how do you feel about this? Not just as a political matter or a communications matter, but as an American.
I mean, if there was a sign on Donald Trump's desk, it would say the buck stops there. It stops with somebody else. He's always passing the buck. He is always blaming other people for things that he ultimately is responsible for. That reporter was correct. He's the commander in chief. Obviously, he didn't target the missile. He didn't fire the missile. No one thinks that. But if you are going to undertake this kind of military intervention and you are in charge, as he makes clear every single day that he's in charge, then ultimately you're responsible for horrible mistakes that happen. And I think President Bush and President Obama during the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan routinely took responsibility for terrible things that happened during war, but this guy would never do that.
Kevin, is a hypothetical, but I think you're up to it. How would President Reagan have answered that question?
Well, I was about to say Joe Biden did not take responsibility for
he did not
righteous strike that was not righteous at all and killed 13 innocent people.
He also didn't take much responsibility for the people who died in Afghanistan.
Right.
I mean, during the withdrawal. So
look, Reagan would.
Yeah, go ahead.
Reagan would probably do an Oval Office address written by Peggy Noonan, and it would be beautiful and presidential. And about the war in general at some point. I don't recall exactly what he did about Lebanon when they pulled out, but I think he would own up to the mistake. I think at some point the military's got to give a real answer on this. What happened? How did they target? If this was a mistake. Obviously, our military does not hit civilian targets, especially little girls. That would never happen in a million years that they want to do that. So obviously something went wrong. Give it time to investigate. We're under no obligation to know exactly what happened immediately because it does take time. But if that's what happened, it's a horrible thing, and everyone's got to own it, and we've got to know why.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you both for that. Let's go to number 5, please. This is the president talking about how the war is going in Ohio. Number 5, please.
Happens to them. But 47 bad years we suffered with them, not only us, the rest of the world. And we're doing our job. So we had to take an excursion, but it's doing well. The market's holding up well. I figured we'd be hit a little bit, but we were hit probably less than I thought, and we'll be back on track in a pretty short while. Prices are coming down very substantially. Oil will be coming down. That's just a matter of war. That happens you can almost predict it. I would say it went up a little bit less than we thought. It's going to come down more than anybody understands. Do you have any questions, Peter?
Yes. You just said it is a little excursion, and you said it is a war. So which one is it?
Well, it's both. It's both. It's an excursion that will keep us out of a war, and the war is going to be. I mean, for them it's a war. For us, it's turned out to be easier than we thought.
So I'm a close Trump watcher, and I get asked 1,000 times a day, when's this going to end? And of course, people in finance who are used to tacoing think, well, maybe the war will end this weekend. And I actually thought, based on what he said earlier in the week, that it might. But now, based on what I've been told about dealing with the Strait, and based on the president, the tone he has, even as he says the war's gone well. Kevin, if you just took at face value the things the president has said about the war, how long would you think it would go on for?
Well, the last time you got me to predict something on this show, he struck the night that we said it was going to take a week. But so I won't totally predict it. I will say that he's got cat-like political skills, though.
Yeah.
And no matter what position you put him in, he can quickly shake up the board, switch positions at any moment, totally rearrange the deck. Who knows? But
I'm not going to make you predict.
He's not allowed to let this go on too long with his voters.
But do you think
it just wouldn't happen?
But what does that mean? Not too long? Weeks?
Weeks. Definitely not months. If we get into the we're getting into the summer of the midterms.
Right.
Forget about it. There's no chance.
Matt, if you just listen to his tone and what he says, does it seem like weeks to you now?
I don't have the faintest idea. That was total word salad. It was an excursion, but it's a war. It's a this, it's a that. I mean, nobody knows, and he doesn't know. Let's face it. He has no idea. Pete Hegseth has no idea. No, none of these guys know, for the reasons that you kind of set out at the top, which is, what do we do to get out of this so that the straits are reopened and we can, restore the global economy to where we were? Things are really bad now. I mean, there are 3 carrier groups there. We are using B-1 and B-2 bombers. We've lost 7 guys, and there's been hundreds injured just from American troops. There have been thousands of deaths and injuries of our allies. This is a war. I don't know what an excursion is, but this is a war. And obviously they're just not willing to own up to that.
Yeah. Again, raise your hand. We'll get to your questions in a bit. Going to cover a few more topics, but then I want to get folks in to talk about whatever you like, including the war. Kevin, you're such a great anthropologist of your party and the relationship between Republican presidents and the Hill. There are a lot of reasons why Republicans should be freaking out about the president, not just the war, not just his approval rating, but he went down and talked to House Republicans, and he said, all I care about is the Save America Act. I don't want to pass anything else. I won't sign anything else. Doesn't talk much about affordability. So people say, well, why are they sticking with him in the context of the midterms? Like, why wouldn't they separate from him? One reason is they're afraid of him, right? And they know how popular he is. It's a myth. The people in the media keep saying, oh, MAGA doesn't like war. No, some MAGA influencers and talk show hosts don't like the war. But MAGA likes anything Donald Trump's for. So part of why they stay with him is because he's powerful, and some of them don't want to be primaried. How much of it, in your view, is either of the following 2 things? How much of it is they believe in him, that they believe in him, genuinely believe in him? And how much of it is they like him, that they're friends with him, they've gotten to know him, they trust him out of friendship? Are those factors for members of the Republicans, or is it just fear?
I mean, I think he's just pulled the entire party into his orbit, and he is, the 800-pound gorilla now that you can't really break away meaningfully from him without basically up with a target on your back and leaving the party, like some have done.
Okay, but is that 100% of it? Because I think about George Bush's relationship with Republicans in Congress, or Bill Clinton's, or Barack Obama. Barack Obama maybe less so because he didn't care much for courting Congress, but Bill Clinton did, Joe Biden did, and they were genuine friendships, genuine personal affinity. But do any of them feel close to Donald Trump? Do any of them feel like he's their pal and that's why they're going to stick with him?
I think they want to be. Yeah, I think they want to be on his inside. Inside the circle, the outer ring of the circle, where they can text with him and they can golf with him and they go to Mar-a-Lago in good graces and be seen around town and be good in that respect. But their voters are his voters too. There is no way to separate yourself as a Republican at this point. You can't carve out an independent lane. This is the Trump party right now.
Let me ask it this way, Matt. Who's the Democratic president you've been closest to?
Bill Clinton, for sure.
Bill Clinton, for sure. So if Bill Clinton called you up while he was president and said, Matt, I really need you to do this for me. I really need you to, endorse some legislation or whatever. Part of why you'd be inclined to say yes is you had a personal bond with him, right?
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to your point, Mark, he had personal bonds with impeachment managers, the guys that were trying to get him impeached. He would call them up in the middle of the night and shoot the crap with them. That's what he was. And if you gave him truth serum, even those guys would say, I actually like the guy. Yeah. I do not think that that's what they would say about this president.
Kevin, who's the Republican president you were closest to?
W, I guess.
Yeah. So if during his 8 years of presidency, if he called you up and said, Kevin, I need a favor, I need you to do something, part of why you'd be inclined to do it is because there was an affinity. You like the guy, right?
I would just do whatever Carl told me to tell him to do.
All right. That's another way to think of it. A woman had some medical emergency at the president's event that's ongoing now. And luckily there was a doctor in the house who was able to administer to her. We'll look for the video. Dr. Oz was there. So that's always good to have a doctor in the government and on the trips. Maybe we'll see that video in a moment. All right. I want to run through one other topic, which is the SAVE Act, Save America Act. John Cornyn, did you guys read the Cornyn op-ed in the New York Post today? John Cornyn wrote a very lyrical, lovely piece about how Democrats are going to get rid of the filibuster, and therefore Republicans should get rid of the filibuster to pass the SAVE Act, which is not a position Senator Cornyn has had in the past. Some are saying it's a cynical attempt to secure the president's endorsement and avoid losing the primary, the runoff in the primary to the MAGA candidate. First of all, let me ask you both, because I haven't had a chance to. Who do you think? Do you think the president will endorse Cornyn, Kevin?
I think he will. I think it comes with some risk to. It's going to make a lot of noise online and with the
if he endorses what's the attorney general's name? Paxton. Thank you, Paxton. Kevin. If he endorses Cornyn, do you think Paxton will get out of the race?
If he offers him something, I think he should offer him something. If he does that, give him a job in the administration, give him something special.
Matt, do you expect the same sequencing?
Probably. I think if the political team at the White House can get him there, then they certainly want him to do that. I can't imagine they don't. So probably that happens.
Okay. Here is John Cornyn today asked by a reporter if he changed his position on eliminating the filibuster in a cynical attempt to get the endorsement of President Trump. Number 15, please.
Previously said that nuking the filibuster would be taking a wrecking ball to Senate rules. Is that no longer true?
I said I'd be open to reforms.
What would you say to those who say you just changed your mind to win the president's endorsement?
I'd say that's not true.
You also said that if
I think we're through. Go ahead. Go away.
Thank you.
So I don't know how well you guys know Senator Cornyn. I covered him when he first ran for the Senate. A little surprised at that we're done here, go away. Usually he's a little more genial. I don't have a degree in psychology, but I'd be willing to suggest that line of questioning may make him uncomfortable. He's a pretty principled guy. And Kevin, will your party regret it if you get rid of the filibuster to pass this bill?
Yeah. Well, Look, there's two schools of thought in the party right now. Democrats are going to get rid of it anyway and jam through Puerto Rico and DC statehood and make all sorts of horrible things happen, expand the Supreme Court. So we might as well get everything we can now. But that's a big risk, and of us going first, it's a terrible hit to the brand, obviously, or our identity as conservatives. So I don't know. I'm torn on it because I can make an argument either way, but I don't ultimately think they'll do it. Maybe they get back to a point where they just go with a clean voter ID, national voter ID bill, take some of the other stuff out of it, make it a simple vote, and get the others that are reluctant on board. Because I don't see a filibuster on this happening.
Yeah, Matt, would this be a bad idea for the country or the party to get
Yeah,
rid
I
of
mean, it would make the Senate into the House. It'd just be the same as the House, only with fewer members. And look, the Democrats were saying the same exact thing Kevin just said in reverse when we were in the majority. Well, I mean, if the Republicans come back, they're just going to nuke the filibuster. We might as well do it. We should get rid of it. It was a bad idea when my party was talking about it. It's a bad idea now. It is an incredibly frustrating thing, but it does.
Matt, do you think your party would do it?
No, I do not. I really don't.
I don't either.
I think
if we don't do it, Democrats won't. That's
Democrats won't.
I don't think
because
so.
we now, it used to be, well, we're the party of governing. We want to do big things. Republicans just want to stop stuff. So it'd be better for us if the filibuster went away. But I think the Trump 2 era is teaching us that is not true. And the filibuster is very important.
Yeah. Although I don't really understand the magic of 60 versus 50. Right.
Right. I mean, there's no real logic to it other than it requires a supermajority, and that means
what percentage of the years since the Senate was created has one party have a supermajority? Anybody know? Be a great question for ChatGPT. Not very often. Not very often. No. It's happened some in our lives, right? Democrats had 60 votes when they passed Obamacare.
Yeah, and when what's his name from Vermont, Jeffords changed parties, we had 60, but it was very brief. I mean, there were huge majorities before the filibuster, the modern filibuster was kind of created in the 60s, but it's been a long time.
Yeah, Reagan had 60 votes for a bit after the big sweep when they won. How many? They won like 7. They netted like 7 seats in one year. All right, a quick word from a sponsor, and then to your questions. Please raise your hand if you want in on the conversation with Kevin and with Matt. Last sponsor of the night is super.com/RX. This is a membership program that allows you to go to the pharmacy counter and save up to 85% off prescription drug prices. Now, some of you have insurance that allows you to get most prescriptions for free or very low cost, but sometimes, as you know, you'll go pick up a prescription and they'll say, sorry, your insurance doesn't cover it. This is a backup for you. And if you don't have insurance that covers prescription, this is your front line of defense. Go to super.com/RX for 85% off, up to 85% off prescriptions. If you want to avoid that moment where you got a really expensive one, you can't afford it. All you do, if you're a member of this, is you pull out your phone and you show that you're a member of Super RX, Super Plus RX, and it's basically a life hack for prescription prices. You can save up to 85%. As I said, it's available to use at Walgreens, CVS, Walmart, Kroger, 74,000 pharmacies around the country. No hidden fees, just ability to not overpay for prescriptions. Go to super.com/RX to see how much you can save. You can put in the current prescriptions you have and decide whether it's right for you. Elise, welcome in. Thank you for being part of Two-Way. Unmute, tell folks where you are who don't know, and then question for Matt and Kevin. Thank you.
Hi, I'm here calling from Nevada today. I had questions about, I wanted to talk about the SAVE Act. So I am a nonpartisan voter. I support voter ID. I generally think, like, sometimes we hear arguments that, like, people who don't have ID don't know how to go to DMV. I think so they can't have an ID. I think those arguments are offensive. I also believe, and I know there are a lot of states that struggle to give people their ID. So like in Nevada, if you don't have documents to get a driver's license, it's nearly impossible to get an ID. So I think both of those things are true. I was blessed enough a couple of years ago to get married, and I changed my name. So my documents, my ID documents, don't match my birth certificate. It's my understanding that under the SAVE Act, I am now going to have to show documents to explain why my ID doesn't match my birth certificate. So I would love to know, Kevin, why Republicans want to make it harder for me to vote than my husband.
Kevin.
Yeah, I think that's a dumb unintended consequence of a badly written bill, if that's the case. I remember when my wife changed her name for maybe a year or two, she didn't get around to it right away, and it did cause a lot of problems. But I feel like married women are not the type of people that anybody's looking to stop from voting. So I feel like you could get some creative language in there that would stop that from happening, showing an old ID with an old name. But yeah, I mean, I haven't read the entire, details of the legislation. I take your word that that's what it does. I do feel for married women that is a pain in the ass. I know because my wife went through it. But you're not the type of person we want to be screening for. That's not the problem we're looking to weed out. We're looking for actual fraudulent voting.
Yeah, Matt.
Look, the problem with the SAVE Act is that it's trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist. I think voter ID is fine. The states that have voter ID, I think that's good. I live in Virginia. I have to show an ID to vote. I think that's important, and people should have to show ID. The problem, at least as you note, with the SAVE Act, is it isn't about ID. It's about showing citizenship, which means you have to show a birth certificate or a passport. Most state driver's license would not suffice under the SAVE Act. So even going to DMV in most states will not get you where you need to go. If you don't live where you were born, if you don't have a passport, which most Americans don't, it makes voting much, much harder. So this is a bad law. Voter ID, good. SAVE Act, bad.
Yeah. Elise, thank you. Grateful to you for the question. And Republicans are going to have a problem on their hands if they do pass this. I don't think they're going to.
It just might be too much in too much in that bill. If it just focused narrowly, I think.
Yeah. And of course, the president's thrown some additional provisions in there as well. Exactly. John, welcome in. Unmute. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind for Kevin and for Matt.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. And Mr. Halperin, let me just say you are always one of the most gracious and wonderful hosts. And Kevin, Matt, I love you guys. Always wise counsel. Proud owner of some Cozy Earth. So just awesome. shouting you out there.
Thank you, man. Very grateful to you for all that.
I am 23 years old. I am a true MAGA. I would like to consider myself a true MAGA patron. I voted for Donald Trump twice, would have voted for him a third time in 2016 had I been able to. And I just want to say, and my question is this, but first I'd just like to say, I'm extremely, like my dad would tell me, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. I believe that he's kind of gone back on some of his anti-war rhetoric, and it's kind of disheartening to me. But my question is, what are going to be the ramifications of him disavowing Tucker Carlson from the party? Because I believe that it's going to have a lot more than we think.
Yeah. John, where do you live?
San Antonio, Texas.
Yeah. And what's the thing you like least about the president?
What I would like least about the president is that he tweets a little too often. I believe he speaks his mind before he kind of gets a educated thought out there sometimes. I think he means well in a lot of what he does, but I think he just kind of needs to rein back some of the tweets.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And before I turn you over to Kevin and then Matt, what are your concerns about the Iran conflict?
My concerns is that he's going to endanger the lives of American troops, and we are going to be wrapped up in another foreign conflict like we were in Afghanistan and Iraq. And I believe that some of the Lindsey Grahams and the Mark Levins and some of the war hawks and kind of pro bomb people are in his ear a little too much. And the Laura Loomers, I mean, I believe she has way too much access to the president, if you ask me.
All right, one more question, and then I promise I'll turn you over.
Yes, sir.
Who are your three favorite podcasters or video podcasters? Which programs do you like the most?
I love first of all two-way the morning meeting. I was a big fan when you had Dan and Sean on. I always love and I watched the huddle. Big fan of the huddle as well. It would be Tucker Carlson, and Megyn Kelly are three of my favorites. And I thought she did a great job at disavowing Lindsey Graham yesterday.
Yeah.
That was epic.
All right, thank you for that, Kevin. I'd love you to respond to John about the President Tucker, but if you've got questions for John as well, take to it.
Well, I guess I would ask John, why do you think, given the history of Donald Trump and other people that come and go in his world, that Tucker or Megyn, who have been slightly critical to, just questioning, why they would never come back? Because that's his history. And Tucker and Donald Trump are still, by all means, friendly, I think. He was just at the White House. He disagrees with him on the war, obviously, but I would guarantee they're probably still texting. And look, people come and they come back. Do you think that's going to happen with this?
I hope it happens. But then again, you have some people that, like his longtime attorney, Michael Cohen, who I watched on the Patrick Bet-David podcast. I mean, they were close. They were practically best friends from what I heard, and he's not coming back. I know Tucker and the president have known each other for quite a long time. And I hope that's the case, and I wish it is. He brought Elon back into the fold, so that's something. Yeah. But I feel that once you kind of I don't know. I feel like there are some lines you cross. I think that the bridge that Trump has to want to bring back Tucker.
Yeah, Matt, thoughts?
I think it's a really interesting question about whether the MAGA base has been split in a significant way. Clearly, it has for John and for the people that follow Tucker and Megyn and the kind of war skeptics, for sure. But the polling of Republicans out today shows 85 to 90% support for the war. So it may be that people that are really paying close attention, like you, John, are really skeptical. But I think for most people who are just out there living their lives and are not spending a whole bunch of time thinking about politics, it may be that Republicans are still pretty squarely behind the president.
May I just say, can I say
yes,
one more
sir.
thing?
Please do.
I would just like to say I was for it, and then I went to the gas station and yeah, I was paying, I believe I think it was almost $2.40 a gallon here in San Antonio. Now it's almost at $3.20, and then so I'm like it's starting to affect me, and I just worry about. I have some friends who are in the military, and I worry about our brave men and women getting them in a situation that we shouldn't.
Yeah. John, one more for you before you go. I'm very grateful to you for your kind words and for being part of Two-Way. If you personally could pick the Republican presidential nominee for 2028 and your choices were Ted Cruz, the vice president, or Marco Rubio, who would you pick?
I would pick the vice president. And I hope Marco would run with him. I still love Marco. I think Marco's doing a great job. Can I tell you who I think would be the Democratic nominee? Because I've heard you speak about this before.
Yes, sir.
Stephen A. Smith will be the Democratic nominee for 2028.
He's not running.
No, he's not running. He told Sean Hannity he wasn't run. So you're gonna have to find somebody else.
I don't know.
He's voting for Marco.
I've got a high bar for how definitive people need to be to take themselves out, and he was definitive. He's not going to run. And I was skeptical he'd run anyway. So, John, you're going to have to find somebody else. Grateful to you for being part of Two-Way, John. Please come back regularly. Love to have you on. Dave, welcome in. Unmute. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind for I muted you accidentally, Dave. You got to do it again. For Matt and for Kevin, thank you for being here.
Hey there. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Great. Yeah, I just wanted to call in and just really ask, why is it that we're not seeing coverage kind of, I'd say in past wars, you kind of see a little bit of a support for America. I feel like in the last few weeks, I listened to just about all the media, especially CNN and Fox just on, and I feel like there's been more talk about, this terrible incident with the school than there's been about, first of all of the people, the Iranians that have been murdered. Secondly, the threat that was known that's imminent at some point that we've been, procrastinating on for the last 40 years. And it's just, I don't know, it just feels like we've all seen the change in the media over the last 10 years, but we haven't really seen it around a war that we're involved in. Yeah. And it's just kind of sad to some extent.
Yeah. I'll just say that, the role of the media is not to cheerlead. And I hope people at this platform know that I'm a not unbiased reporter. And I'd say this no matter who was president, particularly during times of war. Governments lie. The administration, we don't know that they've told the truth, for instance, about their characterizations of the Iran nuclear program, which is a big part of their justification for this. So I don't think people who find the media liberally biased in general, as I do, should take coverage of a war that's skeptical and attribute it to either hatred of Donald Trump or general liberal bias. I think it's proper to ask questions. They're spending our tax money. If you're a conservative, you should be concerned that one person without authorization from a co-equal branch where they're supposed to declare war is just spending billions of dollars on his own say-so. He's killing foreign leaders. Extremely controversial to kill the head of another government without any legal finding, any authorization that we know of. It's extremely controversial to kill civilians without a declaration of war. It's extremely controversial to give 17 different justifications for a war. So we shouldn't be reflexively critical, I believe, of the media when they question any government's use of military power, particularly under the circumstances it's been used. Even if you think the cause is just and righteous, even if you believe in Donald Trump, you should want the media to ask questions. Now, again, the media is liberally biased. The media hates Donald Trump. I could show you on any hour on CNN, any edition of the New York Times, I could show you things and I'd say, I wouldn't have done it like that. That is reflective not of good journalism or safeguarding the public interest. That is bias. Every hour, every edition. But that's not true of all the coverage. And particularly in the last 24 hours. We talked about at the top of the show, Dave, and then I'll turn over to Matt and Kevin, but you can see this fires me up because this platform is about clarity. It's not about being for or against Donald Trump or for or against the Democrats. In the last 24 hours, even people within the administration have said to me, I don't really get how we weren't prepared to deal with the Strait of Hormuz. And I don't care if you are the most MAGA person in the world. The facts are before us. They didn't have a plan. There's no sugarcoating it. There's no pretending there was a plan. They didn't have a plan for something. I don't even know what a metaphor would be because it's just so obvious they needed a plan. So it's right for the media to ask not just what are you going to do now, but why? How could you not have had a plan for that? So that's my view of this. And again, the press is liberally biased. The press is hostile to Donald Trump. Much of this coverage is not the way it'd be covered if this were Barack Obama. But that's different than saying it's all too skeptical. Matt.
It's not objective. That was the point I was making.
Well, but a lot of it is objective. I mean,
no, I would disagree.
A lot of it is. Well, is it objective to say they didn't have a plan for the Strait of Hormuz?
It's objective to discuss how the Strait of Hormuz is a problem.
Well, but is it objective to say? Is it objective
to assume that they had no plan? I think that's not objective.
I can tell you they had no plan. Is it objective to say they're spending billions of your tax money?
I think this is a small portion of the war, though.
Well,
I'm talking about the broader coverage overall.
Yeah, I hear you, Matt.
I think that's one of the more fair points.
Matt,
look, I think the war has been covered very fairly. In fact, if you look at Fox's coverage, which nobody could argue is liberally biased, it's been pretty skeptical today for all the reasons Mark articulated. And look, I understand your point about the straits being only one aspect of the war, but it's a pretty big one. It's the one that is affecting the global economy. There have been comments in the chat about how diesel fuel is up 25%. I mean, this is affecting people's lives now, and it could get much, much worse. And I think, killing a whole bunch of school children, that's a big deal. Taking out the leader of a country in an excursion, that is an enormous thing to do. There's been a taboo against that for decades because we don't want tit for tat assassination attempts happening. So all of this is an enormous set of decisions made by one guy without a lot of justification offered or a lot of different justifications offered. And in my view, at least without a plan.
Yeah. Kevin.
Well, first off, Reagan bombed Gaddafi's house and killed members of his family. I think they were trying to kill him. So there's been precedent for this before. I'm not saying it's a great idea or it's not, but we've done it before. On the media coverage, as I started out the show, I've been confused because I have a diet of media on both sides. I'll listen to anything, just try to get what are they saying, what's the other side saying, what are the pro and anti-war guys saying, and you can choose your own adventure on this story. There is literally people out there that will do hour-and-a-half long podcasts saying that we are crushing it. There's no targets left. We're doing this so much faster. And you can get other people out there. This is a global disaster that's going to take down us, America for generations. And it's really frustrating to only see like, the big powerhouses like the New York Times, they're only focused on, the hospital strike is terrible, but there's not a ton of reporting on what's going on inside the Iranian regime. Maybe that's just too hard to get to, but are they getting briefings from the Pentagon? Are they getting group briefings from the CIA that they can talk about? So I feel you. It's hard to know right now really what's actually happening, but it's a very peculiar media picture right now.
All right. I will tell you. Thank you for that, Kevin. I will tell you, Dave. I've got a fresh headline from the Washington Post that's going to prove your case. And not contradict what I said, because what I said was some of it's biased, but some of it's legitimate. I'm hoping we have this quickly. You guys, can we have that headline quickly?
The Paul video is ready. This is still coming. The Post headline.
All right. While we wait for the insane Washington Post headline, Jake Paul was brought on stage with the president in Kentucky. Dave, do you like Jake Paul?
I do not.
You do not. Okay. Well,
No,
you're gonna have to sit through this. You have to sit through it.
I know a lot about him.
All right. Here's the president touting Jake Paul as potential public candidate.
And he walked out with a broken jaw. Anyway, this was not the greatest fight, but you know what it showed? Lots of courage. Come here, Jake. These are your people.
Yeah, what Mr. Trump has taught me is courage. We never back down from a fight, even if they're much bigger than you, much, much bigger than you. And I feel all the local Kentuckians feel the same way. You guys have that fight. You guys have that swag. There's a lot of young kids in here. The future of America. I grew up just a few hours away from here, and my dad taught me to fight. And all of our voices matter in America. And I'm never afraid to speak the truth, and I know you guys aren't. We are here representing the United States, and it's just a blessing. Thank you, Mr. Trump. We need more factories like this thriving all over the country, and I know he's going to be the one.
All right. I haven't read the story, but look at this Washington Post headline. Dave, make this Exhibit A. Iranian school was on U.S. target list, may have been mistaken as a military site. I mean, come on now. Was on U.S. target list, may have been confused with the military.
Isn't that the New York Times story just repackaged?
Yeah, but they're saying this is exclusive. Kind of insane as far as I'm concerned. Dave, thank you for the question. Who would you like to see be president in 2028? You could pick.
Probably either JD or Marco Rubio.
Yeah. What if you got to pick between them? Who would you pick?
I think Marco Rubio is going to be a much better general election candidate.
Yeah, who'd be a better president?
They could either be, but most likely Marco Rubio initially.
Okay, Dave, thank you. Grateful to you for coming on. Another speaker at the president's event in Kentucky just now, Nick Sandmann, another iconic figure along with Jake Paul. Gentlemen, grateful to you for being here. Love the conversation. Hope you'll continue to come back regularly. Kevin, where can people see your stuff?
Well, I appear frequently on CBS, CNN, elsewhere. On Twitter, but I don't tweet much.
Tweet much. All right. You got a Substack, variety show, anything?
No.
Matt Bennett, where can people follow you?
Our website is thirdway.org, and I am, God help me, still on X at thirdwaymattb.
All right. We didn't get a chance to talk about Jill Biden's book, but we're going to do that tomorrow on the morning meeting. I almost can guarantee it. Larry O'Connor will be here on the morning meeting, 9 a.m. Eastern time. Melissa DeRosa will be on. I will see you tomorrow. And then in 23 hours, this show will be on again. On Next Up tomorrow, my twice a week podcast, my guest is Rand Paul. and we got a lot to talk about. Looking forward to that. Thanks to Kevin. Thanks to Matt. Thanks to all of you for being part of Two Way. I'll see you at 9 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow. Have a good evening, everybody.